Our next speaker, I think, is downstairs. Um, so if you see Dr. Eggert, you can send her upstairs. We're going to go ahead and kind of push up the schedule then. Our next speaker is Lindsay Hesketh. You here, Lindsay? Okay. Lindsay is a licensed clinical social worker in South Carolina and neuroblastoma survivor parent. She has 12 years of experience serving children and families. Currently, she is a child and family therapist who works for the South Carolina Department of Mental Health in a school-based mental health program, providing individual and family therapy to elementary school-aged children. Lindsay's clinical areas of expertise are complex trauma, grief bereavement, and early childhood attachment. She spent over a decade working in the foster care system, providing support to traumatized children placed in kinship, foster, and adoptive families. She has significant training in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization, God bless America, going on, and reprocessing. It's a long day. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy and parent-child interactive therapy. She also utilizes CBT, DBT, and ACT modalities in her practice. Lindsay Hesketh.
Thank you, Pat. So first, I just want to thank Pat for this opportunity for all of us, right? I see myself as one of you. I was sitting in the room last year as a parent, and I really think this opportunity is really changing the lives of all of us that get to be here to learn this information for ourselves, to make informed decisions. For me, one of the most powerful things was just to meet another family that's going through neuroblastoma, because we never had that opportunity until we came to this conference. So if we could just give a huge round of applause to Pat. So grateful for this opportunity. So before I begin, to me, it feels amazing to be up here, and it also feels terrible. And so I want to explain what I mean by that. So I'm going to share briefly a little bit about my daughter's journey with neuroblastoma, but it feels amazing for me to see. So we're sort of on the other end. She's doing wonderful right now. She's here with us. Our family is sort of rebuilding. We're healing. And it feels amazing to think of what can happen in a year, right? And that can go either way, right? In 1 year, our whole world is flipped upside down. And in 1 year, we can move from absolutely complete devastation and struggling to doing great and thriving. And so I'm thankful that in the past year, we've been able to move to a place of thriving. And so that feels amazing. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. But it feels terrible because I hate neuroblastoma, right? I hate that we are in this room together, that we all have had to go through this journey. I hate that our children are suffering. And I hate that all of our lives have been completely flipped upside down, completely changed, and life will really never be the same for any of us after going through this. So at the same time, it's absolutely terrible. And I think it's really, really important that we take a moment to acknowledge that. I think it's so quick for us to move to a place of fighting and advocacy and decision making, right? We have to be the strong ones. We're the parents. But it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And in this room and in this setting, we can admit that because we are in like company, right? Everybody here gets it. We get it. So I say that because in my presentation, as we move forward, it's really, really important that we go there first, right? I want you all to sort of feel the space to admit that and to sort of live in that emotional space. I'm a therapist, and we're going to move to a feeling space, not a head space. Okay, so coping with a neuroblastoma diagnosis. I really should have called it coping with a neuroblastoma diagnosis, treatment, and after effects, right? Because we don't just cope once. We don't just cope when we get the diagnosis. We cope day in and day out. We cope through every step of treatment. And then when treatment ends, we actually really begin to cope ourselves, right? And so the coping is an ongoing process. It's an everyday process. All right. So I just want you to know I'm not representing any sort of entity. I do work as a therapist, but I'm really here as speaking as a therapist out of my knowledge, but as a parent because this is really important to me. All right, so you all know you've been hearing so much information, right? Your head is probably exploding. Mine did last year. And so I'm moving us to a different space. So in this presentation, we are going to acknowledge the things that I acknowledge every day in my office with children and families. So we're moving, number one, to our feelings. How this feels. How we experience the emotion, right? Worry, terrified, scared. All of those feelings is where I want to focus. The beliefs that we're telling ourselves. This is terrible. This is tragic. I'm a different person. I'm not the same. How is my kid going to make it through this, right? The thoughts that we have impact our functioning every day. So what are we telling ourselves? What are our children telling themselves about this journey and about how this has affected them and changed them? Our senses. So we've got our 5 senses, the things we see, the things we hear, the things we smell, the things we taste, and the things we touch. All of that sensory stimuli that we take in comes into our body and it affects how we function. So, for example, this conference, for me, I tell myself very positive things, right? It felt really, really good to be in this room with other families that are struggling. So it feels good, right? When we connect with other people, right? When we have conversations with other people, that affects how we feel. So being here together, all of this information that we're taking in, how we see each other, how we interact with each other, all of that information affects how we view something and how we're functioning. And finally, our body. So I think sometimes in mental health, we tend to focus on the brain and the feelings, and we forget that our body is a very, very critical piece of our overall well-being. And so thinking about how is our body affected by what we're going through. For me, my body was much, much, much more affected than my mind. I felt the trauma in every fiber of my being, in every single part of my body, in a way that I could not articulate in words, I could not put into thoughts or feelings. So I want you to think about all of that for you. So I have 2 goals for my talk today. Number 1 is to just sort of reset your nervous system. My focus is you, because you are the key to your child's well-being. So much of our time and focus is on our child. What can we do for our child? How can we make things better for our child? But the best way to do that is for you to be the best version of you. So I'm going to take us through some simple things that I do with kids in my office. We're going to do those things together. But I want you to think about how can you change your nervous system and your functioning as a result of this weekend. And finally, to reframe your journey. So the way we think about neuroblastoma, the way we approach treatment and recovery after neuroblastoma, how we move through all of that. So I want to start with a brief video. Wendy's in the room. I gave her a heads up that we were going to share. This is sort of her sharing just briefly about what it's like to face the diagnosis.
remember the period of knowing something was wrong, and then going to that, well, getting a scan, and then being told that there's a mass in your son's abdomen, and then going to the hospital. And I'm just thinking, what's going on here? I was just a, whirlwind of confusing emotions. And we were told to go to the hospital. I remember exactly what that room looked like. And I remember the exact moment that a couple of days later, after the doctors ran all the tests, that we were told that your son has stage 4 neuroblastoma. And then the doctor started going through the treatment protocol with chemo and radiation and everything. And it slowly started sinking in that he's got cancer. Like, I didn't understand when they said neuroblastoma, because I'd never heard of neuroblastoma. And stage 4 sounded a little scary, but it just didn't all come together. And then I remember asking him, I'm like, are you saying that our child has cancer? And he said yes. And just the abyss that became my emotions at that moment, I just felt like we were at the bottom of a pit with no way out. It was everything devastating. Evan was asleep at the time, and I just couldn't comprehend it. So once that started sinking in, it was decided that he would have surgery to resect his tumor to begin with. And I remember living in that devastation, going down to the operating room and his being wheeled away. And you're thinking to yourself, they're about to do surgery on our child. This doesn't even make sense, And then they wheeled him away, and I sat there in that feeling and emotion of just being like, what are we going to do? Where do we go from here? I have no idea what's next. To this feeling that came, I don't know where it came from, but suddenly I felt like I was ready to start the fight of our lives. Like, I was so ready to start that fight. I felt the only way I can compare it is if a boxer is ready to get into the ring, and they're like, shaking their muscles out, and they're getting ready to take it on. And they're like, I'm fearless. I'm going in here. We're going to do this. There is no way but up. We're going to, overcome anything that comes our way. Our little family of 3 is going to overcome anything that comes our way. So that was just the beginning of realizing what a process this is, and how it's going to change from day to day. And it's going to feel different on different days. But yeah, starting a diagnosis, man, it sets you off into a path you never thought you'd have to face. But you do.
So I like that, because there's sort of the devastation hits, right? But then we very quickly move to, well, we've got to be strong. We've got to fix it. We've got to find a way through this, right? So this is Willa, my daughter. She was diagnosed at 3 weeks old. And that was sort of the trauma for us, was she was just born, and immediately we started to discover different symptoms and started that journey of like, what in the world is going on here? And it felt like we had just left the hospital at the time that we were going back to the hospital with the most tragic news and just the uncertainty of what that was going to mean for us. So I'm grateful that her prognosis was good. She was in the intermediate risk category. She went through chemotherapy. She had tumors all over her body, but as quickly as the cancer grew, we found that treatment was helpful for her. But the shock of the diagnosis, and then we move instantly into, well, we've got to solve this. We've got to be strong. And for us, because of her age, every single time there was any sort of scan, any sort of anything, it was inpatient stays. And she is the youngest of our children. I've got 2 older daughters. And so there was a lot of living at the hospital and not seeing the other children. This is Willa now. She is here with us, and that's her family. All right, so we're going to start our nervous system reset, and I'm going to ask you guys to do this with me, okay? So has anybody ever done box breathing before? Okay. All right, so we're going to breathe in for 5. So I want you guys to do it with me. Ready? We're going to breathe in for 5. Hold for 5. Breathe out for 5. Hold for 5. We're going to do this 2 more times. Breathe in for 5. Hold for 5. Breathe out for 5. Hold for 5. One more time. Breathe in for 5. Hold for 5. Breathe out for 5. And hold for 5. Good. Oops. All right, so I'm going to sort of dive into trauma. So what is trauma? This is traumatic for all of you. I want to acknowledge that. This is not just traumatic for your child. It is not just traumatic for their siblings. It is traumatic for all of you. So what is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to a significant distressing event or series of events like accident, abuse or neglect, witnessing violence, death of a loved one, war, critical illness, or a natural disaster that negatively impact one's ability to function and carry out their everyday tasks and responsibilities. Trauma is caused by it causes adverse effects on one's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. A common immediate reaction is shock, denial, fear, grief, and other strong emotional reactions. So sort of what Wendy shared with us, right? We just sort of freeze. A lot of us have brain fog and cannot remember parts of that time of life because the brain is so flooded with the emotional stimuli of what happened that there's not that logical thinking that sets in later. And longer-term outcomes can include nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, heightened arousal, disrupted sleep, and an increased stress response. Did anybody experience that? All of it for me. So the size or the impact of the event is not the only factor that determines how traumatic something is to an individual. So we sort of, in my world, we kind of talk about big T trauma versus little t trauma. We think of big T trauma as things that are socially acceptable as a big deal. And sometimes we think of little t trauma as something that's maybe not as socially acceptable as a big deal, but we experienced it as a big deal. And the most important thing with this is it's all about how you experience the things that are happening. Not what is socially acceptable, not what somebody else would say, but it's how it is experienced by you, the individual. So I may go through something that is the exact same as someone else, and I experience it as traumatic, and the other person does not. Another thing that makes it traumatic is the circumstances surrounding the trauma. This is really, really significant. So it's not just the trauma itself, it's what took place before the trauma, what took place during the trauma, and what took place after the trauma. And not just the event itself, but also what is going on in that individual's life. And this is not just external experiences, but it's also their internal state of being and all of the things that have led up to their internal state of being when that event takes place. And 2 people can experience the same exact event and have very different traumatic responses. So this happens a lot in families. One parent may react differently to a child's diagnosis than the other, or one sibling may struggle with the diagnosis and another sibling seems unaffected. It's very, very normal and common. So traumatic memories are stored in the brain with lots of additional information, including sensory stimuli. So all of the things that we take in, sound, taste, touch, all of that comes in and is a part of the memory. Positive and negative beliefs and emotional responses and images. So when you all think back to a very significant memory in your life, whether it's positive or negative, it's usually charged with a lot of emotion. This is how I felt when that thing happened. This is how that event or that memory made me feel about myself. I can remember what I was wearing on that day. I can remember the things that I saw in the room, right? We connect all of those things to memories, and especially when they're traumatic. What differentiates traumatic memories from other memories is how the incident is experienced by the individual and how it is stored in the brain, specifically what negative beliefs and feelings are connected to it. So I do a lot of attachment work because I work with children. I do a lot of work with their parents because often the child's trauma is connected in the parent's challenges, either as a parent or the parent's challenges in their own personal life. And what I see is that hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Let's keep moving and it'll come back to me. So healing can also take place when the intense feelings and negative beliefs are no longer part of the neural networks connected to the memory. So the way I describe this to a child is when that traumatic thing happened to you, I want you to imagine your favorite food. So for a lot of kids, it's pizza or hamburgers, right? So you're taking a big old bite of that pizza, right? You take a big bite and you forget to chew it up a bunch, and all of a sudden it gets stuck in the back of your throat. Well, what are you going to do to get that big piece of pizza to get out of there? How are you going to breathe? How are you going to get through that, right? You got to get something to drink, right? And you drink something and then it can go down. So when we go through something traumatic, it's exactly like that bite of pizza. So the memory comes in and suddenly everything stops, right? It gets stuck. It's stuck in the brain. And all of us have this. Every single person I've ever worked with has this. A lot of times it originates in childhood. So something difficult, scary, or painful we go through and it gets stuck. And when something gets stuck and we haven't worked through it, then anytime something else comes into the brain that is similar, so there's a similar emotion that it evokes in us. There's a similar sensory stimuli connected to it. The way it makes us feel and believe things about ourselves. I am stupid. I am dumb. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Anytime something is connected to that same neural network, it comes in and it gets stuck, or we get triggered. We have a very strong emotional reaction. It's usually because that initial traumatic memory has not been resolved yet. It's still there and it's still stuck. And so I'll kind of get to what we do about that later on. So for example, someone can share what happened to them with a more objective view and does not experience emotional distress or intense emotional activation when thinking about or recalling events. So when we drink something and that piece of pizza goes down, then we have essentially healed that traumatic event to where we can recall what happened. We can say, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and we can do it in a way without it evoking this emotional response to where it still feels very painful and difficult. We can just talk about the events that happened. All right, so this is a brief sort of reflection activity. So I'm going to go through several different areas of your life. We all know that neuroblastoma has had a significant effect on us, but I want you to sort of think through specifically what it has impacted for you. So if you're, a DF sort of student, CDF student, you sit in the back of the room, you may just want to do yes or no. But if you're like me and you want to be thorough, you might do a 0 to 10 rating for yourself in these categories. So 10 would be, it has affected absolutely everything for me. 5 would be right in the middle. 1 is maybe a teeny tiny bit, and 0 would be no effect at all. So this is just for yourself if you want to write it down or think about it in your head. So your marriage. How has your marriage been impacted by your child's neuroblastoma dynamic? your job, work, and finances. Having to move, having to live in another area, constant hospital stays, the stress of medical bills, and lost work. Childcare, so thinking about the other children that you constantly need childcare for. How childcare shifts for your child that is going through treatment and doesn't need to be around all the germs and typical thing you were doing prior to this. School, education, and learning, how it has affected their learning during treatment, after treatment. Sibling relationships, how has it changed your child's ability to interact with others? How has it changed? Have you had more behavioral issues as a result of treatment and spending so much time in the hospital with adults instead of peers? Jealousy from the other siblings that perhaps aren't getting as much attention, or jealousy from the child going through treatment that can't be at home. Extended family and close friend relationships. How has it changed you feeling understood by other people and feeling supported by other people? Leisure activities. Are we doing things to take care of ourselves? Are we doing things that we enjoy? Has it taken away all time and all joy for us to have fun and to take care of ourselves? Future goals and plans, things that you had looked forward to, things that you were dreaming about, have all of those changed? Have all of those been affected? The uncertainty of if they will be affected or not. Your hopes and dreams, whether it's for yourself or for your family, how has neuroblastoma affected that? And finally, your quality of life. This is a very subjective thing, right? We are constantly changing how we view and define what quality life is, but how has it affected the way you view what that looks like for you? All right, we're going to do another regulating activity, and these are good for you to do with your child during meltdowns, right? So another one I do, this is one of my favorites, is hot chocolate breathing. Or brownies are my favorite dessert. I always ask kids, what's your favorite dessert? You know, it's got to be something that comes out of the oven. Cake, pie, brownies. So I want you to imagine, we're going to do this 3 times together, and I'd love for you guys to do this with me again. We're going to regulate ourselves, right? Because the biggest way to help our kids is to help ourselves. So we're going to smell that amazing hot chocolate. Hold it. And we're going to blow on it to cool it off so we can sip it as fast as we can. This time we're going to smell that tray of brownies. Hold it and blow on them to cool them off so we can eat them. One more time. Good. All right, so there's a couple different ways that we can sort of think about our own functioning, and there's many, many more that I'm going to share, but this one is from a standard CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's really 3 things that impact each other significantly. One is our feelings. This is just everyday feelings, and it can also be feelings about ourselves, feelings about our child, feelings about our situation. Thoughts, what are the thoughts that we are having? I love being at this conference. I like to be here. It makes me feel good. And both of those influence our behavior or our actions. So because I love to be here, because it makes me encouraged, I learn new things, then I want to be here. I'm going to prioritize coming. So when we think about ourselves and our functioning, I want you to think about your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. What are ways that you can adjust your thoughts about your journey? Are you in an endless cycle of despair right now where you're just I hate this. I can't stand this. This is truly terrible. My kids are suffering. And how is that impacting your behaviors? The way that you're approaching your child, the way that you're approaching treatment. What are your emotions? Are you feeling hopeful that this next treatment option is going to work? Are you feeling really discouraged and guilty about that child that is not seeing you and not getting your attention, and you had to leave at home just to come here, right? So think about, how can we adjust our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions to support us? EMDR is probably what I use the most in my practice as a trauma therapist. And this is where I'm going to go back to that pizza sandwich example, right? So we go through traumatic things. And I will say with neuroblastoma, it is not one massive trauma. I mean, it is, but within it, there are multiple traumas that we experience within it. So diagnosis is a big one. There may be a particular location that you're moving to for treatment, and that particular situation is creating a lot of havoc on the family. So as we think about these moments in our journey that are traumatic, the ones that we remember that are infused with those really painful emotions, those difficult thoughts about ourselves or our family, those are traumatic. Those are difficult for us. And all of those are stored within our brain with images. We remember the event. We remember the negative belief that we have about ourselves. We remember the emotion, and we feel that trauma in our body. So ACT and DBT approaches are very focused on self-esteem, how you feel about yourself. Future hopes and dreams. What do you want for your future? How you view yourself in the context of your relationships, your community, and the world, and do your actions align with your values? So are you living in the present day-to-day moments, or are you able to think about the future and where you want to be as a family in a year, in 2 years? Are you able to think about the future of what you want for your child 1 year from now? Or are you so stuck in the trauma of where you are right now that you can't get there? And so this can be helpful for us to start thinking about the bigger context. So I will say the thing, and I mentioned this before, but the thing that I see the most in my practice is that the children that are struggling the most and the children that struggle to heal and struggle to feel better are the ones where the parents are not doing that themselves. And so as you think about your own family, as you think about how much you're focused on your child and your child's needs and your child's treatment and your child's future, I want you to also sort of pause that thinking. That is good, in balance with also thinking about yourselves. So how are you taking time to heal yourselves? How are you modeling for your child? If you want your child to feel the best, how are you showing them that you're going to prioritize you feeling the best too? When you do this, it changes the family environment, and it unifies the child and the parent relationship. So when a parent is prioritizing themselves, is healing themselves, and showing the child boundaries, that their whole world is not just that child, but it's also their lives too. That is really healthy modeling for the child to learn that they can have boundaries with other people. They can prioritize themselves. When parents are attuned and responsive to their child's needs, children heal. So, we don't just want our children to beat neuroblastoma, we want our children to thrive. And the way our children thrive is when we are very attuned to their needs. So we give them space to feel pain. We give them space to feel miserable. We don't need to fix it. We do not need to fix their pain. We need to be right there with them, next to them, listening to their pain and validating their pain. It is okay to feel upset about this. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Thank you for telling me. So when parents can fully accept their unique selves, when children can fully accept their unique selves, so they understand how they're different from their parents, and with their struggles, so parents don't try to fix them, but parents are there with them through their struggles, children heal. So the parent role is to co-regulate the child. So children don't know how to regulate themselves. When children are really, really young, they have no skills to regulate themselves. And we as parents can teach them by modeling regulation for ourselves and helping them to calm down when they get upset as well. So when parents feel their own emotions and prioritize their own healing, children do as well. Okay, so we're going to do another breathing activity. So kids love this. This first one is we're going to do a lion breath. So we're going to breathe in, and then we're going to like a lion, okay? All right, so ready? On the count of 5, we're going to breathe in and breathe out like a lion. Breathe in. Now we're going to breathe like a snake. We're going to breathe in and hiss like a snake. So breathe in. Good. Okay, so this is the index card. So this is another self-reflection for you all. So I think sometimes we think about it as like neuroblastoma is me and my child against neuroblastoma, right? We are fighting neuroblastoma. We're going to advocate. We're going to fight. We're going to work hard, and we are going to beat this. It is us against neuroblastoma. I want to sort of encourage you to think about it in a different way. So instead, I want you to think about this. So neuroblastoma affects every single person in our family, right? Each person has their own individual journey. Each spouse experiences it differently. Each child in the family experiences it differently. And then I want you to think about the roles that you carry. You are the advocate. You are the expert. You are the researcher. You are the nurturer. You are the caregiver. There's so many different roles that you are taking within this. But neuroblastoma is not your entire life. It feels like it, but it is not. So I want you to think about what other things did you have that were a part of your life before neuroblastoma. What are the roles that you want to maintain and prioritize in addition to the roles you carry as a parent? And what hobbies do you want to still enjoy to take care of yourself? Because when we take care of ourselves, it affects the entire family. Okay, so the reframe is neuroblastoma is something that each person in the family experiences. And I want you to sort of think about, so this was kind of my example, and this was my perspective. My husband may have a different perspective of how much neuroblastoma was taking up my life, his life, and each person within our family. And the second is sort of what I wanted to move towards. So the initial is kind of what it was, and the second is sort of a different way to view of it, of how could we be more whole? How could we be functioning in a more healthy state? And so I want you all to use your index cards to kind of process through what that looks like for you. What is it right now in this moment? Or perhaps if you're on the end of your journey, what was it like for you at the beginning of your journey? And what would you like to move towards? What was the ideal? What is sort of the healthy view for you? So what it looks like now, or what it looked like early on in the journey, and then what you want it to be. So how do we move towards what we want it to be, right? So there are many, many ways that we do this. One is we have to sort of envision what we want. We have to know what the vision is that we're moving towards, and then we have to visualize it. So there's a lot of research that when we imagine something to be true and we sort of live out of that reality, it is actually more likely to take place. And this is because the way we operate, the way we make choices changes when we envision it. So a lot of times with children in my office, I will have them create a safe, calm place, and they will visualize this safe, calm place. They will imagine themselves going to this safe, calm place and being in it and noticing how it feels and taking in all the sensory stimuli around it. And when they do, and they open their eyes, this is a 2-minute exercise, they feel entirely different. They come back and they feel completely regulated, completely calm, and as if they were actually in that place. So what changes do you want to make for yourself, and how can you do that? So it's helpful to know where we are now and where we're headed. I wanted to just briefly run through this with you all because sometimes I think it's helpful for us to know there are many, many common diagnoses that are given in response to traumatic events, but I think it's helpful for us to think about our own functioning and how we're doing and what help may be necessary for us. So these are the common diagnoses that I give in response to trauma, and we're just going to kind of run through them real fast. So adjustment disorder is clinical. It is more than sort of a typical person's response to something difficult, but it is more minor. It doesn't last very long typically, and it's some level of challenge that takes place. Acute stress disorder is when there is a traumatic response that happens immediately after the traumatic event. It meets the same criteria as PTSD. However, it is an immediate response to the trauma. So very different than what Wendy described of I'm kicking into, full on, I've got to fight this, I'm going to move, I'm going to do these things. Instead, there would be an immediate, I can't function because I'm having distressing memories, recurrent distressing dreams, dissociative reactions, intense physiological distress, inability to have positive emotions, an inability to remember certain things, and avoiding different reminders and memories and not being able to sleep. PTSD is very similar to acute distress. However, it is much after the event took place. So it's at least 3 months after the event took place, and these things are happening. PTSD is a very common response to a very, very significant trauma. And here's a little bit more information about it. So I am an EMDR therapist. If you feel like you have had significant difficulty with your process, I would highly, highly recommend EMDR because it is very quick. So it's not a long therapeutic relationship where you are, building a relationship and you're talking through things and you have to share everything that you've gone through. The therapist does not need to know all of the details of everything. It is literally your brain healing itself. And so there are eye movements involved. So a therapist is sort of guiding you through eye movements, which it's sort of a way to take you back into the memory, but also keep you present in the room to where you are able to face the memory, but you're not doing it in a way that you cannot function. And as the therapist does that, it's changing the stimuli that are connected to that memory so that you can then reflect on that memory and say, this scary thing happened to me, but I'm okay now, and it was difficult, and it made me change in these ways. And it can really, really help with a lot of the body sensation, clinical presentation that we see with PTSD and acute stress disorder. Art is a very similar therapy to that. And I would highly recommend that as well. It is very, very quick. You can go in for a short number of sessions and really see a lot of improvement in terms of sleep and distressing thoughts and feelings and all of those things. EFT, I don't know if anybody in this room has heard of it, but it is something that you can do at home. At first, I thought like this is wild. This is odd, but it is very, very quick in terms of healing. You can do a 10-minute tapping session and feel entirely different. And it really is very regulating to the body if you're experiencing a lot of these difficult symptoms. And the tapping solution is the best place that I've found where you can do that all on your own. So I hope that you all are able to prioritize yourself and know that when you prioritize yourself, it will be one of the best things that you can do for your child and their siblings' sense of functioning holistically. And these are many, many things you can do for yourself. In closing, I would like to just play a song for you, and I want you to, this may resonate with you, it may not, but I want you to give yourself a moment to just feel and reflect on the progress that you have made since you started this journey. How has your outlook changed? How has your feelings changed? And how has that impacted your children and your family? Is there a way for me to play that link? Okay.
Let your eyes close. Let your body feel heavy. Let it go. Let it all go. Let your eyes close. Let your body feel heavy. Oh, let it go. Let it all go. And just breathe.
All right, so I wish you all my best. I'm so proud of all of you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Lindsay. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? No? Okay, we're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back here for our next speaker. Thank you.